Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. This is episode 292, and it's an emergency podcast. My name is Brad Rowland, and I'm joined on this Monday emergency edition by Scott Coleman. Scott, I think it's safe to say that today was a weird day, and it's kind of surprising, but the Braves have a manager. How are you?
Hello, Brad. It is officially a new era for the Atlanta Braves. I don't know if it was necessarily the direction that we all thought the team was going to go as recently as even 24 hours ago, but here we are, Walt Weiss, the new manager for the Atlanta Braves. We have so much to talk about on the show today.
We certainly do. And if you're new to the podcast, we encourage you to subscribe to Hammer Territory anywhere you get your podcast. We are part of the Foul Territory network of podcasts. We are grateful to those guys for hosting us and keeping us dialed in. So please subscribe on Apple and Spotify. Please subscribe on YouTube as well. It takes 2 seconds. Just smash the subscribe button as you're watching this video. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot to get to. Walt Weiss is now the 49th manager in franchise history for the Braves, as they announced today. 61-year-old has been the Braves bench coach since 2018, so been around for a long time. Played for the Braves famously in the youth for you and I anyway. We were both young when that happened. And also has managerial experience, was the Rockies manager for 3 years. Did not have success with the Rockies, but I will be the first to say that's not really on the manager usually with the Rockies. That's an organizational mess happening there and has been there for a long time. So, I mean, let's just start here, Scott. We kind of already danced around it a little bit, but this was not necessarily on our radar. It was on our radar. He was a candidate the whole time. But between the reporting and the way that the winds were blowing, I was surprised for sure that this happened. Beyond the surprise, because you already alluded to that too, what is your big picture take? We'll go deeper as we would on this deep dive episode. But what's your big picture take and reaction to Walt Weiss being the manager?
It was underwhelming. Was my true, if I was doing a live podcast with you and I saw the tweet come across in real time, I truly think I would have said, well, this is underwhelming, because throughout the process, we heard the names of some younger, kind of more forward-thinking managers or manager candidates who did not really have affiliations with the Braves. And after the retirement of Brian Snitker and after a bad season, it felt like this team was at a crossroads where it naturally made sense to go to an entirely new voice. Not someone who's been around the organization for years, not someone who's familiar with Brian Snitker and Alex Anthopoulos in the front office. This was the opportunity to start truly a new era. And while it is a new era because you have a new manager, it kind of feels like Snitker 2.0. Now let's say it off the top, Brad. At the end of the day, managers are judged by wins and losses and how far you go into October. As long as it's nothing completely egregious, if Walt Weiss wins baseball games for the next however many years he's the Braves manager, then great. And, let's be clear. We talked about Brian Snitker for the last 8 years on this podcast. Did we always agree with Snit's in-game management? No. Were there things we'd probably do differently in terms of lineups and bullpens and playoff management? Yes. But at the end of the day, the Braves were a largely successful team under Brian Snitker. Maybe after a month-long search, the front office truly feels that Walt Weiss gives this team the best chance to win baseball games going forward. It's not who I would have hired. I don't think it's who you would have hired. And based on my mentions, it is not the person a lot of Braves fans would have hired for this job. But at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. If the Braves are good, it worked out. And if they're not, you can bet that the angst with this franchise is only going to get worse after a couple of rough years for the Braves.
That's definitely the case. And I agree with what you just said wholeheartedly. I would not have hired Walt Weiss. And I think you and I mentioned that in a conversation at least once over the last 4 weeks, basically hey, kind of push Walt Weiss to the side, and we'll come back to this in a second. But also, a lot of the reporting, most of the reporting, kind of pushed Walt Weiss to the side, and doesn't mean that's right. And I'm actually kind of proud of us, Scott, that we were pretty diligent in giving all the caveats every time there was a new buzz somewhere. Hey, this is just buzz, and the Braves are different. leak things, and we were pretty good at keeping the guard up to some degree during this process. But you're right. The reaction was extremely negative. My reaction is less negative than that reaction. Like, I think people were like really melting down, and I get it. It's the internet. It's just what we do. But I would not have hired Walt Weiss either. Granted, I'm not making the decision. You mentioned the words front office, and I'm curious about the dynamics in play there. We'll come back to that later on in the show. But one thing that I wanted to say is that, like, you're 100% right. Like, wins and losses are kind of all that matters. Brian Snitker was not ever, and I say this knowing Brian Snitker had a really, really good tenure as the Braves manager. He really did. I don't think anybody anywhere ever thought Brian Snitker was this like elite tactician. That was not Brian Snitker's calling. His strength was locker room management, player management, vibes, basically. And I don't mean that in a negative way. He was very good at that by all accounts. Everybody loved him.
Keeping a group of 30 millionaires together for 8 months out of the year.
It's not a small job. And it's one that we always say this, we can't know what happens, and which makes it hard to discuss it. It's a lot easier to see what happens on the field because we can actually watch that and use math and do all the things that we do on the show and in writing and whatever. The behind the scenes stuff is the bigger part of the job, which is hard to say and hard to sort of analyze, but it's true. And Walt Weiss, I mean, I don't know Walt Weiss. Maybe you do, and I don't know it, but I don't know Walt Weiss. His reputation is pretty good from what I've heard, seen. People seem to like Walt Weiss. I know he was a manager before in Colorado. It's Colorado, whatever. But he was a guy people like Chipper Jones, for example, like wholehearted endorsement today on Twitter. Now that's a famous player, all that. But like, by all accounts, this is, if you want to be, it could be positive or negative. Like, I've seen people say positively, this is kind of an extension of the Brian Snitker, even Bobby Cox. Like one of the columns written by one of the beat guys today, I won't mention who, led with like ties to Bobby Cox and like the through line for 30. And like, that makes me kind of like a little bit uneasy, but there's a large portion of this fan base that likes that like really feeds on that still wants to go back to that era, and all the Braves way will come up later on in the show. I'm confident. I don't really care about that as much as everybody else does, but you're right. Like, if he just keeps it on the tracks and they win baseball games, no one's going to be bothered. I would have preferred Danny Lehman. I would have preferred George Lombard. Like, I would have preferred some new blood, even if there was the middle ground. Like, I think Lombard was the one that was like the middle ground of like actually has Braves ties if they just have to have that. But apparently that they really want Braves ties, and that's not changing anytime soon. So here we are.
Yeah. You know, I will say, friend of the show, Gaurav the Deck, who is very keyed into the Braves organization, covers the farm system tremendously, has been on the show, and has connections to a lot of the people working for the Braves, did report tonight that Walt Weiss and Ronald Acuna Jr. have a fantastic relationship. Now, at the end of the day, the one thing that you and I and everybody else cannot know, or maybe we'll hear eventually, but what does Ronald Acuna Jr. think of Walt Weiss? What does Matt Olson think of Walt Weiss? What does Austin Riley and Michael Harris and Chris Sale and Spencer Schwallenbach? We don't know. Those are things behind closed doors we are not privy to. And you would think, because Walt Weiss has been around the majors for so long, he's been a manager, he's been a bench coach, he was a longtime player, that he would be respected in baseball circles. I have no doubt that that is going to be a successful part of the Walt Weiss tenure as Braves manager, that he will command the clubhouse, that he will have the respect of the players on day one of spring training, that it's not going to be drama city every other week because there's something going on that Weiss isn't getting ahead of. It's the in-game stuff that makes me nervous. Maybe he's better than what we anticipate him being, and maybe he really impressed the front office during his interview process about things he would maybe do differently than Snit, or just ideas he has and his receptiveness to data and analytics and pushing the team forward as so many other franchises have done, Braves included. It really is the kind of tactician side of Walt Weiss that I think everybody is holding their breath on at this point.
Right. And I'm really actually interested in, normally I'm a little bit less interested in the, intro press conference kind of stuff. Like it has to happen. I get it. With Walt Weiss, I'm actually really intrigued to see like what he is even saying about like modern baseball analytics. I'm not sure he's going to get grilled on that in that setting, but I would hope he'd get at least asked, like, hey, what do you how do you blend numbers and things, more modern things? And I'll be interested to see that. I mean, there was a clip that made the rounds from John Gibbons that people were kind of poking fun at today, and I think rightly so, about clearly did not like analytics and was kind of out on that, and that made me cringe. And hopefully Walt Weiss is at least not going to be that. I don't think he's going to be that, to be fair. But no, yes, I'm interested in that. And one thing I wanted to say, because you're right, the in-game tactical stuff, we'll focus on it a lot. That's part of what we do on the show. I will also say, and this is my opinion only, you don't have to agree with me, I think that this stuff matters a lot, but it also is not the difference generally between a good team and a bad team. I feel like sometimes it's framed as if a manager could be responsible for a 20-win shift in a team. And I simply don't believe that at the professional level. It matters. There are games you can point to where that was an error and it might swing a game or a post game, especially in the playoffs. I'm not saying that. Famously, Brian Snitker was on an all-time heater in the 21 playoffs. Even when moves didn't make sense, they all worked. And it's hey, cool. And forever, he'll be legendary for that run because every single button he pressed worked for a month. And that's cool. It's baseball.
Yeah.
I also don't think that even if you told me for sure Walt Weiss is not as good tactically as pick your other favorite candidate, David Ross, George Lombard, whoever, the gap between those things is probably overstated. That's my opinion, generally speaking. Now, again, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It definitely matters, but so does the other stuff, which was the Brian Snitker thing too. And I think we were often accused of being too low in SNIT. That's fine. But we did go out of our way a lot to say, hey, the stuff that we don't see is what he's supposed to be awesome at. And maybe, I would say probably even, Walt Weiss is good at that stuff. That's the selling point, I would imagine, on Walt Weiss. So,
yeah, I mean, we will know when the games start. I mean,
we will know. Yes. Until then,
right?
It's all noise. Until April 1, basically, or late, whatever, March 27, it's all noise. And that's fine.
And I would hope that, short of, again, just something completely egregious, you would sure think that Walt Weiss, after 40 years in baseball, would understand bullpen leverage and how to manage a bullpen. And you can't pitch everybody every day. So how do you navigate the wins, the losses, the close games, the blowouts, lineup construction? As long as there's nothing just what on earth are we doing, then fine. I know there was some former manager, I think it was David Girardi, who was talking about lineup stuff. And he was every night I was just in agony trying to figure out what the lineup combo would be. And we ran out 10 different lineups over the course of the season. And it was virtually non-existent what the difference was in Joe Girardi, what the difference was in runs scored every night. And yeah, so the proof will be in the pudding.
Yes.
This is still not the hire I would have made without being privy to a bunch of phone interviews and Zoom interviews and in-person interviews. I think I would have gone with an outside voice. We'll see, Brad. I mean, this is for Alex Anthopoulos and Terry McGurk and the Braves franchise, this is a stick in the ground, and you can bet if this goes sideways, they are not going to stop hearing about it, because this was not the hire I think a lot of people were leaning towards.
Yeah, it's almost seems like it's a safe hire, and it'll probably be pitched that way. But I agree with you. It's almost not safe. It's almost more risky to double down, especially if they had won 95 games last season and Brian Snitker rode off into the sunset and they hired Walt Weiss. That would make more sense to me as a safe option. You don't want to upset the apple cart, all these things. Coming off of last year and even the previous year where a lot went wrong too, even though they were much better 2 years ago. You're right. This really is a stick in the ground. It's kind of a doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on the Braves' way, for example, which we'll come back to in a second. So a lot going on here, a lot of caveats. I agree with you. I would not have hired Walt Weiss. I will also, as you just did, raise my hand and say, we don't have all the information. And by the way, no one in the public sphere, no one, not the beat guys, not your favorite fans, nobody has all the information. It's not possible to have all the information. It's just what it is. We like to follow stuff closely. I wouldn't have done this either. I'm also not in a blind rage. And to bring it full circle, if they win, no one's going to care. No one. Absolutely no one's going to care. If they lose, everyone's going to care. And
absolutely.
That's what happens. All right, Scott, we have plenty more to get to on this from every angle, from the reporting aspect, some some thoughts that at least I have. I think you might share a couple of them, perhaps, on how this all went down, front office wise, and also later on, coaching staff impact. Ha-Seong Kim opted out today. There's a lot to get to on today's show, so stay tuned. We'll be back after a word from our partners.
Hey, we've told you about Huel's new Daily Greens ready to drink can, but also we do not want to forget about the OG.
Your favorite. You love that chocolate peanut butter flavor.
I do.
You and Kratz love that chocolate peanut butter flavor.
That's my favorite one. Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
The breakdown?
The vanilla, also good. But when they sent me the chocolate peanut butter, it's like a dessert. But it's not.
35 grams of protein, no added sugar, gluten-free for your boy, under $5 per meal because it's a meal and a drink. 6 grams of fiber, 27 essential vitamins and minerals. Huel makes healthy eating simple. They also just launched into Target stores nationwide. Try both products today with 15% off your purchase for new customers with the exclusive code FOUL at Huel.com/foul. Use that code, fill out the post-checkout survey to help support FT. Get after it, FT fam.
All right, Scott. Let's keep going here. Plenty to get to here. I guess, well, I want to talk about the reporting aspect for a second because I'm a process guy. You know me. Boy, it was weird, man. The way this all unfolded was very, very strange to me.
Yeah.
It became, and we covered it all, every twist and turn. I think it was logical. I want to start here. It was logical to think that Danny Lehman was the favorite because of the timeline and because of the reporting, to be fair. Like, there was a lot of reporting from the beat guys that pointed to Danny Lehman. And then when you threw in the timeline of, hey, the World Series is going on, he's the bench coach of the Dodgers, it was very natural. We did push back a little bit on that just, a few days ago when you and I talked last. But as of this morning, the Braves didn't actually announce Walt Weiss until later in the day. As of this morning, there were some just odd leaks going. Like, Mark Bowman was going back and forth, and I'm not picking on Mark, but it was like he was all over the place, and he was making fun of himself also on Twitter by doing this. It was like John Gibbons is back in the mix for 5 minutes, and then Danny Lehman's out, and George Lombard. And I'm not saying, it was a wild ride, and I wonder. We can't know. I wonder how much of that is just like noise filling because Alex does not leak things, and like it's like, hey, the World Series is over now, and it's the first business day after the World Series, and maybe it's just like leak season, or maybe that was always going to come down today, and that maybe stuff has started flying. So, what did you make of the whole thing? It doesn't really matter now. Walt Weiss is the manager, but I think it was just kind of fascinating how we got here because there was like basically no Walt Weiss smoke for the last like 4 weeks. He was always mentioned in like the fourth paragraph of all these pieces, but he was not a leading candidate for anyone, it seemed like, in the reporting space.
Just an odd path that we took to get here because Weiss was internal. And, I wonder, Brad, what the reaction would have been if 10 days after Snitker announced that he was hanging him up, if the Braves announced Walt Weiss as manager. I don't think it would be glowingly positive, but I think it would have been a little less extreme than all of us sitting around for literally a month at this point. Is it Danny Lehman, the hot new analytics thing with the Dodgers? Or, the Dodgers just won the World Series, so surely it's Danny Lehman, right? That's why we've been sitting around. Or it's George Lombard, or it's Ryan Flaherty, or maybe Flaherty and Lombard are like neck and neck, and they brought him in for final interviews over the weekend. Like, there was so many stories you could tell yourself as to why this took a month and why so many other teams had already filled their manager vacancy. And then it was, oh yeah, we're hiring our bench coach of 7 years now, somebody who is a respected baseball man, but has not had a lot of success. This was not like hiring, say, AJ Hinch, as the Tigers did a couple of years ago. Even if Hinch had the stink of the cheating scandal on him, he was a World Series winning manager.
Yeah.
Walt Weiss is not a sexy hire. He's not necessarily an exciting hire. What I would pay to be in the Atlanta Braves boardroom today to hear those final conversations between all of the head honchos and how they got to this point, because it was an odd path to get here.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. If they had announced this on, Snit retired on I believe it was actually October 1st. If they had hired Walt Weiss on October 9th, I think it would have been received better. You're right. It wouldn't have been universal praise, which it's funny as I'm thinking about this, even in real time, it's almost more encouraging that they went through the process, that we seemingly went through the process.
Sure.
On one hand, that would maybe give you a little bit of, I don't know, credence to the fact that they actually made this a process and not just gave the job to Walt Weiss. I would have been the opposite. It's kind of funny. I would have been the opposite, Scott. Like, I think you're right that the universal reaction would have been a little bit kinder 3 weeks ago. I would have been more bothered 3 weeks ago.
Sure.
Because it would have been like, oh, hey guys, at least go through a process. Like, try to think for a second outside the box. Would have been my messaging at that point in time. But you're right. It's like in a lab to like really enrage everyone, especially with all the reporting where it was. And I think you and I are probably more on the wanting new blood side than a lot of people are. But we are on that side. And I still, that goes back to what we talked about in the first segment about not wanting to do this. But it was just odd. I wanted to just make sure we said that out loud. This whole thing was very strangely handled. Maybe we'll get clarity at the press conference whenever it happens. Could be tomorrow. I'm not sure when they're going to do that as we're recording this. But also, as we transition to something else, it's actually a natural transition point. I would always encourage everyone to be skeptical of anything said in a press conference. And I don't mean that negatively. It's just like that's good advice for any sporting thing. I cover other sports too. Not that people are going to lie to you always, but everyone's highly incentivized to make Walt Weiss look like he was the guy all along. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to come out and say, you know what? We went back and forth. We were split in our room, and they're not going to say that. I will fall on the floor, Scott, if Alex and Terry and whoever else comes out and says, you know what? Actually, at the end, we were on different sides. Like, no one's going to say that. Yeah. No one's going to say that. It is what it is.
I will say, and this is something I heard from multiple people today, that Terry McGurk is far more involved with the day-to-day operations of the Atlanta Braves than some folks might realize.
Can we reset this? I actually want to say this too, and I know you know, and a lot of listeners know, but Terry McGurk, I think because of the Braves' unique setup with the publicly traded aspects, formerly Liberty Media, now spun off into Braves Holdings, their own company, all of that. They don't have a quote-unquote owner in the way that a lot of teams do. Terry McGurk is functionally the Braves owner. He's not the owner of the team. I'm not saying he is. I get that, guys. I understand it all. But he is the chairman, president, and CEO of Braves Holdings, which owns the Braves.
Right.
He is the representative on the MLB Executive Council for the Braves. He is the representative on the MLB Ownership Committee for the Braves. He is the big boss. So, like, he's not exactly like Steve Cohen or Hal Steinbrenner or pick an owner that you don't like, whoever it is. Pick whoever. He's not exactly like that. But if you're trying to pick one person in the Braves organization that is closest to that, it is Terry McGurk, and I think he gets discussed way less than someone in his job probably should get discussed. So I wanted to just say that I know people in my own life who are self-described Braves fans, not sickos like us, but Braves fans. Like, they go to like 5 games a year. They're Braves fans, right? Just run-of-the-mill Braves fans who probably don't even know who Terry McGurk is.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that's the reality. He's not talked about that way because of the situation. But you're 100% right. What you say, so keep going. But Terry McGurk is a big deal, and I have a take I'll deliver later. But go ahead.
Yeah.
What you were saying.
Oh, I mean, what I would give to have Alex Anthopoulos on the show, maybe get him a couple drinks, loosen him up a little bit, and go, all right, Alex.
On the show, by the way. Yeah.
True.
Alex is hammered on Hammer Charlie podcast. But hey, Alex, if you want to have a loose conversation, come on down. We want to invite you.
Open invite.
Please.
I would truly love to know that if in his heart of hearts, would Alex Anthopoulos have hired Walt Weiss? Or was this a group decision? Was this a Terry McGurk decision? Was this I don't know. And we will never know. Like you said, Brad, we will never know where the truth fully lies. But I did at least want to say that Terry McGurk is involved, just like owners are for a lot of sports franchises, probably for overall worse than better. But what are you going to do? They own the team, or they effectively own the team. I would truly love, and maybe Alex would say, yes, Walt Weiss was my guy. I swear on everything, Walt Weiss was my dude. I still think Alex, just knowing how he wants to operate, was maybe fond of other candidates, but that is purely my speculation, and maybe I am completely wrong.
Yeah, and look, we're not Ken Rosenthal. Like Ken's a colleague of ours. He does work on the Thought Territory Network. We are not Ken Rosenthal. We're not breaking news. We're not insiders. We have some sources. We're not. It's not our full-time beat or whatever. I will say this. I'll try to walk the line here comfortably. I'm not reporting anything. Stress that. I heard from multiple people today, that there was a split in the front office. And by front office, I mean that could encompass McGurk, Alex, whoever. I mean, and that's not shocking to me. If you just think about the personalities involved, like the way that I framed it on Twitter today, and this encompasses what I'm hearing and also my own common sense. But I want to stress I'm not reporting this because I don't know it to be true. Keep that in mind. I like to be responsible. It feels to me, that's the word I'll use. It feels to me like Terry McGurk made this hire in the end. That's what it feels like to me. Now, again, maybe I'm doing too much of the like Homeland season 1, big board of like all the little things, and I'm leading that. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying I've between what I've heard and what it looks like to me with this whole month-long process, and in the end, it's suddenly Walt Weiss out of nowhere with all this misdirection. That feels like an old school, the Braves way kind of thing, and that's not Alex. Alex is not a Braves way guy. They hired him. Obviously, he's been running the team for a long time now, but he's not a Braves lifer. He's not a Braves dyed-in-the-wool Bobby Cox lineage guy. And you're right. I'm not to go back to this one more time. No GM or president, anybody in Alex's job, is ever publicly going to throw their owner under the bus on anything. So my go-to example is the one that I think people probably know I'm going to say. Last year, Alex says definitively payroll will not go down. He says it on the record, and payroll goes down. I don't think, in fact, I'm pretty darn confident, it's not Alex's money. You think he wanted payroll to go down, Scott?
There is not a general manager in baseball or a president of baseball operations in baseball who would voluntarily say, Brad, let's cut $25 million off our payroll this year in the middle of a championship window.
I don't believe that happened. Now, I'm not saying that would have fixed everything, but that's always, and I said this at the time, this is a year ago now, I said this into the void. Like, it feels to me like somebody somewhere, and by the way, that's usually someone above you, which means Terry McGurk, said, hey, Alex, by the way, that payroll thing, you're not getting that much money. Sorry. And this is different than that, but it's a reminder of who's actually in charge. Like, Alex has juice, unquestionably. I don't think that Terry McGurk is making trades during the season. I think Alex is the head of baseball operations for the Braves. But a hire like this gets to the ownership leadership level in a way that like trading for a middle reliever doesn't.
Yeah. McGurk also signs off on or says no to every free agent deal.
He has to. I mean, for money reasons, you have to.
Right.
I mean, I understand that the GM or president or whoever that job is in your organization is in charge of baseball operations, but they cannot sign off on a money thing. Like they have maybe some owners are passive and say, hey, here's the payroll. And I don't care as long as you stay under that number. That's different. But like in the end, Alex can't decide to spend anybody's money. Like he's got to have approval to spend anybody's money.
Of course. Yes. They're just like any billion-dollar company. There are layers and approvals and everything. And everybody has a boss, right?
Everybody has a boss is a great way to put that, to wrap up that segment.
Hey, I am sure Alex Anthopoulos is in minute 28 of this podcast listening on his commute on Tuesday morning. Come on, Alex. There you go. I'll give you Brad's number live on the air, and you can come on and tell us exactly. And again, these are the McGurk Anthopoulos possible divide on this job are things we've heard from people around the team. We do not know for certain. And maybe Alex Anthopoulos really does feel that Walt Weiss is the best man for this job. Guess what? He is the man for the job now.
He sure is.
And we will see what the next 1 to however many years hold with him in the manager spot.
Yes, we will. And the Braves way lives on for another day. All right, Scott, we have one more quick break. Hear from our partners. We'll come back, talk about the coaching staff, Ha-Seong Kim, and more in just one moment. All right, Scott, I have a question for you that is a bridge to some coaching staff stuff.
Let's do it.
That we were asked, actually. It's not a unique question that I made up. Basically, the question is like, would you have preferred another year of Brian Snitker to this?
Ooh.
Because, I mean, even the beat guys have kind of said, hey, one of the things about this is like, hey, wouldn't you just, if it was going to be Walt Weiss, or I think either Bone or DOB, somebody mentioned Eddie Perez as another example. Like if it was going to be one of those guys, why not just why just bring Snit back? And maybe Stitcher Society was done. I'm not saying he didn't, but like, that's an interesting question. And I wonder what you think.
That is a great question, man. My first lean was, yes, I would do another year of Snitker than give it the keys to Walt Weiss. But as we said off the top, I'm pretty underwhelmed. And I think it's now on Walt Weiss and the Braves to go win games and kind of not win over the fan base, because that sounds extreme, but
winning games wins over the fan base, though. It really is what it comes down to. You win and everybody's fine.
If the Braves are 7 games ahead of the Phillies at the trade deadline next year, no one's going to care. Even if Walt Weiss is maybe doing some unconventional things, if you win ball game, listen, Brad, up until 13 months ago, Dave Roberts was viewed as like a perennial choker in the playoffs. He couldn't win the big one. And
the thing is, he's a great example, because I still think he's not very good.
No, he has an unbelievable roster. But again, it's the things we'll never know. You don't get to A/B test baseball games and baseball seasons. And that's why, again, the Braves are taking a bit of a gamble on maybe the safest, most boring hire imaginable with Walt Weiss. But sometimes boring and safe is the way to go. Sometimes it's not. And, we talked about having one of these first-time managers like a Danny Lehman or a George Lombard or a Ryan Flaherty. There was no guarantee those guys were going to be successful. There was a chance, and I was intrigued by the opportunity to bring somebody in brand new, but there was no guarantee that Danny Lehman was going to come in and have his 19 Excel sheets open and just like turn the Braves into a 100-win machine every year. We don't know that. The Braves could be terrible next year if they hired Danny Lehman. Again, we don't have the benefit of running simulations. It's just, it is quite the decision the Braves have made with Walt Weiss.
Everything is a risk-reward calculus, which is why, to the Snitker question, and I'll answer it quickly, I would have probably said, if the only choices were Snit or Walt Weiss, I would have probably taken Snit. And the reason is, we know what Snit is.
Yeah.
And Snit has flaws, but he's a proven winning baseball manager. Walt Weiss is not that yet. I think we know. I'm not picking on Walt Weiss. He hasn't done it. It's different than Danny Lehman or George Lombard, whoever it was. Like, I think you brought this up on a podcast recently. Like, look no further than Gabe Kapler as like the example of it not working. A guy that I think you and I probably share a lot of like baseball values with Gabe Kapler. Like, he's more of a modern analytical guy, and it just did not work because he couldn't handle it. Like, he didn't handle it well as a manager.
His players hated him. He could not command. Yeah, could not. I mean, he had relievers openly talking back to him as he went out to take him out of the game. I mean, that's something you would never see from a Snitker type. Hopefully, we never see from a Walt Weiss type.
And that is, I'm not saying that everyone's going to have that kind of downside risk. That is the risk when you're having a first-time manager, is that you don't have that safety. So anyway, that's one area of this. The other thing we should always talk about is the coaching staff impact, because as of now, Monday night late, we don't know anything about coaching staff. Yeah. I think there was a lot of speculation that if the Braves hired Danny Lehman or George Lombard, that might be a pretty big shakeup on the coaching staff, because it would have signaled a bigger shift, right? Maybe you bring back Kranitz or something, but like some guys would have almost certainly left. It would have been just like a new manager and the exact same staff. That would have been shocking to everyone involved. With Walt Weiss, I mean, he could just keep everybody. I have no idea what he's going to do, but he knows the staff well. He's been here for 7.5 years at this point in time. So what do you make of this? And like, what's your reaction if they just like keep the band entirely? Because that seems like it's like on the table. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's at least possible on November 3rd.
I would personally not keep the entire band together. Now, if you want to keep Freddie Gonzalez as the third base coach, no problem. No problem with that. If you want to keep Rick Kranitz as pitching coach, I'm all in. Kranitz has been terrific.
He's my favorite. He's my favorite to keep. Please just keep Rick Kranitz. I mean, I would have understood it if a new outside manager brought in their own guy, but Walt Weiss should keep Rick Kranitz. I feel strongly about that at this point.
Yes. And if he's willing to come back, probably keep Eddie Perez. We don't know if Eddie was really a candidate for the job, for the manager job, but would happily have Eddie Perez back. But, other spots, Tim Hires, if they move on from Hires, fine with me. If they bring him back, I'm not going to be outraged because of the improvements we saw in the second half of the year. But if you're telling me they want to go a different direction with the hitting coach, fine. First base coach, the Braves did not run the bases very well last season. Now, maybe that's personnel based. Maybe it's because they don't have a bunch of guys who are great base stealers. But, first base didn't do a whole lot for me. Obviously we'll need a new bench coach now that Weiss is moving over. So there will be some kind of newness with the coaching staff. So I'm guessing it'll be a blend would be where are you at with that?
Yeah, again, we're totally guessing, but hopefully I would hope that they bring in some new blood somewhere on the staff.
Yeah.
For a shakeup. Maybe somebody that's a little bit more analytically inclined, honestly, would be nice. Maybe a bench coach that's more of a modern bench coach to offset the more traditional manager would be natural. Again, we're shooting from the hip here on the outside, but in my brain, that makes sense. Like, I'm not saying it has to be a quote unquote young person, but someone who thinks differently than Walt Weiss is what I would want. I would want some, not like clash, but like some different viewpoints. But yeah, credits top priority for me. Hires could go either way. It's fine. And everything else, the other jobs are just less visible. Like it is what it is. Like that stuff matters. But as far as like what we can see, no one's going to care about the bullpen coach or, all these things that
third base coach, you can get into some hot water as we saw.
Well, as we saw this year, right. Until they brought in Freddie to stabilize things. People were asking about Wash. I mean, is there a world in which Walt Weiss hires Ron Washington as the bench coach?
Oh, man. I think
it's possible
for the vibes,
to me. They work together.
For the vibes, I'd love Ron Washington back. He also had a quadruple heart bypass.
Yeah. He has health questions for sure at the very least.
Yeah.
But hey, if Wash is physically able to do something, that's fine. Sign me up. But anyway, that's another thing to keep an eye on in the coming days. I know people were asking us. We got multiple people tagging us about Chipper's comments about Walt Weiss. Does this mean that he could bring in Chipper as hitting coach? I'm on record. I don't think Chipper's ever going to be the full-time hitting coach of the Braves. Maybe I'll be wrong about that, but I don't think Chipper wants to do the full. That's a full-time job, kids. And Chipper's a Hall of Famer. It's a different lifestyle. Chipper has a lot of money and can enjoy his life in a way where a full-time hitting coach is a real grind for like 8 months a year. I don't know if he wants to do that. Maybe he does, but I don't think he probably wants to.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be a conversation. And it was interesting. Sure. If folks missed it, maybe 3-4 weeks ago at this point, Chipper said on local Atlanta radio that he was like down to be the hitting coach. Now, saying it on a radio interview versus saying, all right, Brad, telling his wife and his many kids, all right, guys, Dad's going to be away for the better part of 7 months. Like, I don't know, after he did that for so long.
Right. You're thinking honestly, if you're making a run deep in the playoffs, it's 9 months. I mean, you're gone from early February until you're done at the end. And it's every single day. Yeah. And that's for a Hall of Famer who doesn't have to worry about money for the rest of his life. That's a tough ask. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, Chipper's a hitting savant. I'm not saying you don't want the guy around. I think maybe part-time hitting consultant is his best role, but we will see. But yeah, that's the question. Maybe they'll touch on that at whatever press conference they do. But you'll start to, I'm sure, see some hires in the coming days on that, and we'll talk about the best of coming. Yeah, but, Rick Kranitz, please stick around.
Would happily have Kranitz back. Kranitz has had some family stuff and medical stuff over the years. You never know about that. You never want to speculate, of course. But if Kranitz is in and everything is hopefully okay with his family, then sign me up for at least one more year. I mean, Braves pitching has been fantastic whenever healthy the last couple of years.
Yeah, he's done a great job for a long time. Scott, is there anything else you want to add about the manager? We have a couple more newsy things at the end of the podcast, but I want to give you the floor. 38-minute mark here. Anything else to add about Walt Weiss? Obviously, we'll have time. I'm sure Steven and Sean will weigh in on Walt Weiss in the coming days. We'll get more information. But for now, on the initial Walt Weiss emergency podcast, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Man alive, Brad.
Man alive indeed.
I really sincerely hope this works.
Yeah.
I am not overly optimistic that it's going to be a grand slam. But I also don't think it's going to be a total calamity because Weiss has been around for so long and has the respect of players in that clubhouse. So let's hope, let's get the Braves back to winning baseball games like we want them. Let's get them back to making deep runs in October. And ideally, it all works out with Walt Weiss, and he's awesome, and he's the manager for the next, 6 to 10 years, and then you move on. I mean, it would basically be the Brian Snitker cycle all over again, where now, of course, the Braves are good now versus a total train wreck when Snit took over in 2016. But let's hope that we can get back to winning divisions, making deep runs in the playoffs, get back to the World Series. It's been too long. This is a baseball team that has won 2 playoff games since winning the World Series 4 years ago. Hopefully Walt Weiss is the guy to get us back to where we want to be.
Okay, Scott, there is a little bit of news. Honestly, I wish there wasn't anything else to talk about, but we can't gloss over at least the one thing. And that's Ha-Seong Kim officially opting out on Monday. Yeah. Now, if you listen to this podcast for the last several weeks, you shouldn't be surprised. Not that it was a lock, but you shouldn't be surprised. I saw some people that were surprised. I don't really know why. Like, even mainstream people, it's like, I get the situation, and we're not going to do a long one on this because we've talked about it for literally weeks now. We'll do it some more, but it's happening. He's opting out. That does not mean he's leaving. Yeah. In fact, I was always kind of the last couple of weeks of expecting him to opt out of his contract. Do you agree with that? Like, were you kind of expecting that to happen between now and I think the deadline is Thursday, when he could have gone until Wednesday or Thursday? But any surprise from you at all?
No, not a shock. Kim is represented by Scott Boras, who is the king of getting his clients back on the market, because more times than not, it means more guaranteed money for your players. I am sure, even though Kim did not opt in, the Braves have had conversations with Boras and with Kim about keeping him in Atlanta. Maybe it's a couple-year deal, 3 years, 4 years. Maybe the Braves get creative with like a 1+1 deal. Whatever it is, we've talked about on this show a lot over the last couple of months, but Kim is pretty clearly the easiest upgrade at shortstop. Unfortunately, the Braves are not the only team in baseball who could use a shortstop or even a second baseman where Kim could presumably play. Now we just hope the market does not get crazy and the Braves are able to work something out.
Yeah, all this means is that he's going to be a free agent. I mean, also he can sign with the Braves today. He can't sign anywhere else for a couple more days. He can still sign with the Braves today if he wants to. I don't think it's going to happen, but he could. And every dynamic that's already in place is still in place. The Braves need a shortstop as much as any team in baseball needs a shortstop. The Braves have the money to spend on a shortstop. He is the only free agent shortstop other than Bo Bichette, and I don't think Bo Bichette's a shortstop. Maybe Alex does, or Terry McGriff does, or somebody does. But I think he's really the only one that's like a clear starting level shortstop.
Yeah.
On the other side, you can trade for one. It's hard to trade for one. I think we saw that the last couple of years. It's not easy to find shortstops. So it's fascinating. We'll talk about it a lot. But as a podcast, I will speak for all of us in saying this is not a surprise. If you pay attention closely, this is kind of always coming the last couple of weeks. I think when they first got him, the assumption was he probably would opt in. And then with the way the winds have blown, the reporting has blown, his market, like you and I talked like last week about some free agent projections. People are talking about some crazy numbers for Ha-Seong Kim. So if he gets crazy numbers, that makes it all the much more difficult for the Braves. Yeah. But in the meantime, hold on to your hats, kids. He's going to be a free agent. So
yeah, hopefully. I mean, Kim talked to a local newspaper. I believe he's gone back home to Korea, but talked to a local newspaper there and said he had a great experience with the Braves, enjoyed the city, enjoyed his teammates. He's good friends with Jerks and Profar from their San Diego days. It seems like he and Ozzie Albies bonded well, just like Ozzie Albies bonds well with probably every human on the earth because he's such a good dude. So let's hope it was an effective month in Atlanta. And even if the bidding gets close with the Braves and another team, maybe that swings something their way. And let's get it done, because man, if Ha-Seong Kim signs with another club and the Braves don't have shortstop figured out, Brad, I mean, then it becomes like a 3-alarm fire. And it's like, oh my God, who are they going to go get? Because we can't do another 162 of Nick Allen and Vidal Brujan and God knows whoever else.
Yeah, and there is nuance with Ha-Seong because of the injury risk. Like that adds a lot of variance, honestly. If there was no injury history, it'd be a lot easier to project what his contract was going to be. But I think because there is that injury risk and injury history recently, that's what led him to having to sign the weird deal last winter when he was a free agent. And I think that adds more mystery, if nothing else, to what's going to happen in the coming weeks. But stay tuned. We'll cover that as we get going here. And I'm sure there'll be more reporting in the coming days. The other thing, our guys, Sean and Steven, briefly talked about Matt Olson winning the Gold Glove on Sunday night. Hey, not a surprise. Matt Olson was already getting crowned with all kinds of defensive awards. He should Philly Bible Award winner, Matt Olson. Awesome season. I've said it a million times. I won't say it again. He was really good this year. I want to ask you. I'll let you do it because I think you mentioned it on real time on Twitter. How did you feel about the Gold Glove being announced at like 9:00 on a Sunday night?
Have you seen?
I'm just winding you up now. I'm just winding you up right now. That's all this is.
Have you seen the SNL skit with Nate Bargatze where he's dressed up like the Revolutionary War and the Founding Fathers and trying to figure out why some of the weird things that America does and there's no real explanation for it? That is quite literally, they did the meme, Brad. Major League Baseball did the meme. It's like, hey, what time should we announce the Gold Glove winners? I don't know, Brad. How about like at noon on Monday or at 3 p.m. Eastern on Monday or right before Monday Night Football? Nope. We're going to drop them at 8:45 on a Sunday night, the day after the World Series, during the middle of Sunday Night Football. People are putting their kids to bed. Nobody's paying attention other than the sickos. Major League Baseball does some weird stuff. I will never understand it. If they want to hire me, I will happily do their job for them and figure out some things. But yeah, hey, shouts to Matt Olson, Parkview High School's famous alum. Number 2 on my power rankings. You're still number 1. Matt Olson 2, Jeff Francoeur 3, but very deserving for Matt. I was looking at his numbers. Fantastic defensively. Lapped the field. Like statistically, he was like double the second place finisher in defensive run saved and defensive run value. Just a terrific defender over there and does a really nice job for the Braves. Quite literally every single night because he has played now, was he up to like 900 games played consecutively or something?
1 billion consecutive games played.
Yeah.
I'll just say it one more time. There was another round of discourse about Matt Olson this week that we're not going to do because it's very annoying to me. Matt Olson was the best first baseman in baseball this season. Period. Full stop. Keep that in mind in all discussions. Best first baseman in baseball this season.
It is his fault. He does not have. It's Matt Olson's fault. He does not have a $500 million payroll around him to help win a World Series. We got to stop.
Literally only Matt Olson's fault that the Braves did not win the World Series this season. In fact, if they just had Freddie, they would have won 30 more games. Just write that in. All right. I love Freddie, by the way, but
me too.
We agree on the awards thing. It was ridiculous. But that's also a segue into our last little mini topic here. Award season is now officially here. Like there was no lead up to it. They just there was no even like buzz about Gold Gloves. Like, hey, here it is. But now we know they've announced kind of the schedule of when the awards are going to come out. Silver Slugger and Platinum Glove are not huge awards, but they're coming out this week. Those are ones to monitor. The Braves have some. I think Olson could win the Platinum Glove. That's possible to me. He probably will win it if I had to guess right now. Silver Slugger, they don't really have anybody that's like a guaranteed lock or anything. But, anyway, those are lesser awards, but they still matter. The big one is 1 week from when you and I are talking right now. You and I are doing this show on Monday, November 3rd. Rookie of the Year is going to be announced on November 10th. That's the big one for the Braves, obviously, because it has impact beyond just the award. It impacts the draft for next season. Drake Baldwin is the leading candidate, at least for me. He's officially a finalist. That was announced in the last day or so for NL Rookie of the Year. That was always going to happen. But that's the one circled on your calendars. And then after that, you get Manager of the Year, Cy Young, MVP. The Braves are not going to be on the radar for those this year. So it's really just that Braves only purposes. Yeah. November 10th, circle it in red, Drake Baldwin Day.
Yep. Would be great for Drake and would be great to get the extra first round pick. And not only the pick, which is going to be around pick 30, but also comes with a $3 million slot allotment, which, I mean, if the Braves get a top 5 draft pick because they stunk this past year and they get a pick in the 30s and the $3.5 million that comes with that, plus they'll have a higher pick in the second round, they might have a ton of money, Brad. Of course, if they go out and sign some free agents who have qualifying offers attached, they lose the picks, they lose the money, because baseball has the most ridiculous free agent system known in the history of the universe. But if the Braves recoup that pick or add that pick from Baldwin winning Rookie of the Year, it would kind of give them a little bit of a shield, because then they would lose that draft pick if they go out and sign a Dylan Cease or a Framber Valdez or a Ranger Suarez, one of the very tippy top free agents who get a qualifying offer. It does kind of keep the Braves' money for the draft in line, even if they would not get the financial bonus of Baldwin winning Rookie of the Year.
Yep, that is all right. So stay tuned. A lot to come. That's the only award thing that's like huge news, but that's a week from today. Free agency has begun technically. Like, people can't sign with another team until later on this week. That we're only 3 days away now from free agency actually opening across baseball. It is not the flurry of activity that is in some other sports, but guys are allowed to sign. And what that generally means is you start to get some more intel. Not necessarily the guys are going to sign the first day, but you start to get like so-and-so's meeting with so-and-so and like contract demands and all these things. More and more information gathering period beginning this week. Option deadline. There was some reporting today. I'm not going to take it as gospel that the Braves are planning on picking up Tyler Kinley's option. That was out there. We'll talk about probably in a little bit more depth later on this week or next week. That's one to circle. You got Ozzie Albies, you got Pierce Johnson, Chris Sale's a no-brainer, but like they have a few decisions that they have to make in the next 3 days. So no shortage of topics to discuss later on this week.
Yeah, and I think generally you do not see big name free agents sign right away, but you do usually have a couple of significant trades go down between the start of the offseason and maybe the week of Thanksgiving. Sometimes teams are close at the trade deadline but can't hammer home the final prospects or whatever the situation is. So I feel like trades are probably more likely for the Braves or for the other 29 teams in the next couple of weeks. But then I feel like the GM meetings are right after Thanksgiving, and then you have the winter meetings the second week of December. I feel like once we get past Thanksgiving, that's when free agency really gets to cook.
Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there-ish, Scott. I know your passion for the offseason calendar in Major League Baseball, but we have arrived. So stay tuned, everybody. The World Series is over. Decisions aplenty, and the Braves made a big one on Monday. So we'll have more coverage of Walt Weiss. We'll have more coverage of Ha-Seong Kim. I can promise you that in the coming days. Scott, if people are new to the podcast and want to check out Hammer Territory, but also want to follow the Scott Coleman experience on social media, where can they potentially find all of your Indianapolis Colts and Arizona Wildcats takes?
That's right. How about those Wildcats taking down the defending champion Florida Gators? First night of college basketball. It's great to have it back, Brad.
That is not why we delayed the record. Okay, no, maybe it is a little bit, but that's okay.
I know. So shouts to Brad for being a trooper. He's been traveling, staying up late. But as always, we always promise to get an emergency podcast for everybody who checks out the show. We appreciate you greatly. And we said it off the top. We'll say it one final time. A massive day for the Braves. A new era, even if it is not a new face necessarily leading this team, but a new era for the team. Let's go win some baseball games. Let's have a good offseason. Let's add some talent to this roster, and let's get the Braves back to where we want them to be.
Absolutely. So please follow Scott at ScottColin55. You can follow me on social media at BT Rowland. Follow the show, more importantly, at Hammer Territory. And please do us a solid if you're a new listener, recurring listener, returning listener, any of those things. Subscribe to Hammer Territory anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, and especially on YouTube. We're trying to get the likes and the subscriptions up on YouTube right now. So if you're an audio listener, we love that. Stay there for us as well. But also just take 2 seconds and subscribe on YouTube at the same time. Ratings, reviews appreciated. Likes, comments, and importantly as well, if you're already listening, thank you. But tell your friends about the show. I know you have Braves fan friends in your life. We all do. There's a million Braves fans, at least where I live. Not where Scott lives, but where I live. There's lots of Braves fans. Tell them about the show. We appreciate it. Everybody being here as always, and we'll see you all next time.